if you have not subscribed to Alboa Cinema, this is where you will get everything. So subscribe. Subscribe.
So now, karibu to Alboa Cinema. Now today is a continuation of my videos about remuneration payments and the business of filmmaking. So today I've been requested that there is a comment I did on the last video that requested I do this this particular video on royalties. I have spoken about royalties a few times before, and I think it's one of those crucial elements of our industry that must be taken into consideration, that must be implemented for us to grow. Now, I am going to take you basically a step by step on the importance of royalties, why royalties, how, from where, and how to basically always make sure that you have these stipulations in your contract, because that's where it all begins. We do not have that business culture of giving royalties, and I think so many people are misinformed about exactly what they are owed, or if you are owed at all, because a lot of the times people just say, I want royalties, but in your contract there were no royalties. I believe that there is possibly in other industries that are more developed where there is an implicit contract the moment you do something with someone, that you'll have to get paid one way or another, your royalties. But I'm going to concentrate more about your responsibility as a performer, as a director, as a cinematographer, as an executive producer, and what your rights, if you like, what kind of payments that you would like to see over the lifetime of the product you've created. Now, so I'm going to go step by step. So this is going to be, I think, a longish video, but I think this kind of videos need to have as much information as possible so that it helps you make the right decision. This, I have to be honest with you, because it's not already in our business culture in Kenya, here in the movie industry, it will be something that we might have to start doing, because if most producers, I have to be honest with you, if you ask them for it, I don't think they're going to bite. I don't think they want to share that money as much. But nonetheless, if enough of you know about this and enough of you want to do something about it, it will become the culture in our business. Now, what are movie royalties? Let's go. Movie royalties are payments made to individuals or entities with a stake in a film's financial success. Now, these entities include actors, directors, writers, and investors. That will be the executive producer and a producer. The specifics of how royalties are paid vary depending on the contract. That's what I was talking about. Production agreements and the revenue streams. These royalties are typically a percentage of the revenue generated by the movie from various sources, and they serve as ongoing compensation for contributing to the production, distribution, or rights ownership of the film. Now, this is how the revenue streams of royalties are structured. We have at the very top it's always the box office revenue. So a percentage of ticket sales from the theaters will be assigned as royalties. Home video sales, and I think that is a bit old school, but there's still some DVD sales that people have and things like that. So it's become more digitalized, so maybe downloads or things like that. So you really need to look at maybe DVD sales, Blu-ray, digital downloads, generally speaking. Streaming platforms, that could be from Netflix, Disney, Amazon Prime, all those. Television licensing. So if you are in a series, say locally here, NTV, K24, wherever you are, and then you've done a series, done season 1, season 2, whatever, and then it is resold or relicensed to other stations or other platforms, or even just the same station, that would be a revenue stream for you in the royalties department. Now, Merchandising. So you have t-shirts, you have action figures, you have hats, you have hoodies, you have shoes, everything that is extracted from the branding of the film or the work of art, and there's sales involved in it, money made from it. That is also one revenue stream. Now, if you're talking locally here in Kenya, if you have international sales, that is revenue from distributing the movie in other countries outside ours. That one. Now, syndication, which I don't believe we've really, have we really done that? Maybe there's some long-standing series like Malia, Lies That Bind that have that, but I don't believe that we've really gotten into that. But in case you do an international project that also includes syndication, which are payments when the movie is repeatedly shown on TV or streaming services. So it becomes like a Friends thing, if you know that comedy, and many others. So they normally have a lot of episodes and whatnot. So, and then they are sold over decades sometimes. But let's talk about the royalty recipients. Who can receive royalties? Now, on the actors, some A-list actors or your main actors negotiate for a percentage of the box office or back end. That is normally in industries where the actors themselves have such an impact on the sales just by assigning a particular actor a role. Already the movie becomes sellable because they have that brand. They are known. The Tom Cruise, the Jamie Foxx, the Denzel Washingtons, all these people. The moment you see their name on a movie, they're already inciting sales in the back end. So a lot of them have enough power to be able to say, hey, this is what I need to do this deal. I know that without me this movie won't make it. So this kind of power that you have, that's why earlier I've been encouraging actors to build your brand, because as a producer myself, I will pay you what I think I can recover from the market based on the strength of your brand. That's one of the considerations. Of course, talent and the work you put in come in. But what is really important to me is, can you sell this movie for me? If I put you on my poster, would people be excited to see you? So those kind of things those are the kind of things that we look at. So this is also to give you that the gravitas, to give you that strength to be able to negotiate, the power to negotiate. So next we do have directors and producers that may receive a percentage of the gross or net profits. I'm going to break it down more about the gross and net profits and what's preferable as we go on. Screenwriters, now the people who initiate the story, the script, all that, normally they receive residual payments for re-airings, licensing and streaming and things like that. So investors, obviously, in my opinion, they do hold the top position in this hierarchy. They're the ones who put up the money to make sure that the film is made or the TV series is made or whatever it is, if it's music or whatnot. So this video is more about the entertainment industry. So if I'm talking about movies, just know it applies to TV series, music and all that. Now, music composers and artists, they are paid royalties for the use of their work in the soundtrack. So music also has their thing, like we use a lot of music in movies. So there's also that. So you'll find the people created the music also receive the royalties on the back end. So in some cases, you'll find important crew like directors, like cinematographers or DOPs that will also have that power to negotiate and get the royalties in the back end because of their power, what they're able to do for the film or whatever work of art that you're in. Now, what we have to understand is that not every single person involved in that work of art receives royalties. Often, because royalties are mostly assigned on percentage, you might have 1,000 people on set, 100 people on set, 500. You have an extra. You have a set runner. All these people do not receive royalties just because they are on the set. So you must understand that also it depends on your hierarchy. What is a gross and net royalty? I think if you've heard of gross and net profit, it has the same connotations. So gross royalties, those are based on total revenue before deducting production and marketing costs. Let me repeat, the gross royalties are based on total revenue before deducting production and marketing costs, not net royalties based on profits after deducting expenses. You must know that what were basic accounting in the primary school or something. Is it primary school? Business education. Now, net royalties are less favorable because studios often use creative accounting. That means they shift numbers around to minimize reported profits. That's what the thing you've heard about the Hollywood accounting for me phenomenon. You know, sometimes I tell you this guy spent $200-300 million on a movie. There's always some creative accounting. They call it creative accounting, I call it wash. How do you get paid? What is the schedule for you to get paid your royalties? Royalties are typically paid on a periodic basis, say monthly, quarterly, or annually. So because now the producers go out there, the marketers, distributors, they go sell the movie, then they aggregate whatever money has been made, then assign royalties accordingly. Now, for residuals, e.g. re-airing, streaming, payments are often managed by organizations. Now, that is normally how it is structured, because locally we don't have a movie royalty collecting body of any sort. So like in the US, you see organizations like the Screen Actors Guild or the Writers Guild of America, Cinematographers Guild of America, and things like that. So you find, is it Cinematographer Association of America? Something like that. So those bodies, those guilds are actually tasked with that, to collect the royalties for their people and then assign accordingly. Now, that is now when you have proper guilds and associations at work, that they actually have an economic impact on the business, not like us here. We just have our briefcase organizations. When it's time for a deal, they show them up with their certificates. Hey, we need to represent the artists. Not those. These other, you can realize that they have even the power to collect the money and assign. Kind of like our prisks and the music people here, but you've seen the shitstorm that creates because there's a lot of dishonesty. Let's talk about the legal and contractual agreements. Now, contracts determine the percentage of royalties and the revenue sources included. That's why I was speaking at the very beginning that your royalty asks must be put on contract. There's no assumption out here that you'll just get royalties because you showed up. I've had so many people speak like that. But you do not have rights unless it's written down on paper and you've signed on it. So make sure that if you're signing a contract, you can negotiate with your producer or exec or whoever it is that's giving you the job, and make sure that you get the back end. Say, for example, you say you're a main actor, people love you, you have a good traction, you pull in numbers, and the movie does well. You could say, I want 2% of the gross. Never the net. You have explained partly why. 2%. So that wherever money is made, whether the licensing, commissioning, whatever the case may be, that 2% of that gross comes to you. So, but normally people think like, 30. No, most people receive 0.5, 1%. It's usually tiny numbers because it has to be spread across a number of people. That's why I was saying that when you're trying to get to negotiate your deal, you must also understand what the implication is to the entire production. Let me give you a more comprehensive explanation as why what to prefer, the gross royalties or net royalties. Now, gross royalties are generally preferred over net royalties, especially in the entertainment industry that we are, due to the challenges and risks associated with that kind of accounting, where studios often use creative methods to minimize reported profits. Why should you favor gross royalties? Now, the advantages: predictability. Gross royalties are based on total revenue, so they aren't affected by how a studio accounts for production, marketing, and all those other expenses, reshoots, name it. Transparency. Revenue figures, e.g. box office sales, licensing deals, are more straightforward and harder to manipulate than profit calculations. The other day I did a video showing you how a certain movie producers made 15 million shillings on their premiere and whatnot. This is one of the, I think it's the only one that I've seen that they report their earnings. But you're supposed to know how many tickets were sold, how much money was made on a movie. I think it's very important because so many companies all across, they have their yearly financial reports, blah, 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 all those things. Why don't we ever have them? It's as if people are treating the film industry like it's not a business. But more insidiously, I think people are doing it so they do not get to share in the earnings of the movie. So with them, nobody says anything. They just say, oh, nothing. I know it was okay. But it's because also this kind of dishonesty can be mitigated by contracts. And it can also be mitigated by people like me just talking about it and wanting it to happen. And eventually it will get to a place where we all want to know because it's a business. And sometimes somebody is giving you a raw deal, so you must know what the numbers speak. All right? So there are also faster payouts. So gross royalties are typically paid as revenue comes in. So you don't have to wait for all the profit and loss account and whatnot. It's just straight away, this is what has been made, here is your cut. Okay? So, and also it minimizes risk. Recipients don't bear the risk of inflated expenses or questionable deductions. So all these things is not, you see, all this information I'm getting is, I've got it from the more developed industries that actually implement royalties on a large scale. So this is, you notice too that they also have a lot of corruption and a lot of back deals and whatnot and sleight of hand things that will probably shortchange you in your earnings. So you have to make the best decision. I mean that it won't happen to you, but you have to make the best decision to minimize that risk. That is life. Not everything will work as you want, but you have to do things that minimize risk or increase the probability of something you want to happen. So the disadvantages of gross royalties is lower percentages. So studios often offer smaller percentages for gross royalties compared to net royalties because gross revenue is a larger figure. So this is how the production houses mitigate losing out totally, because now if all the advantages go to the people receiving the royalties, the productioners will get hurt because everybody wants to get the best deal they can. So you'll get a smaller percentage because of course the money is more, what you're looking at, but also your risk is less than them. They're taking most of the risk. So if it doesn't work, you've gotten your money, you've left, but now they have to deal with the fallout there. So they have to defend themselves against that eventuality. Sawa. So let's talk about the challenges with the net royalties. Now this is, as I've described before, is the money after all the expenses have been taken out. So a creative accounting, you've heard this mentioned a few times. So it's a big thing. So studios may report little to no profit, even for blockbuster films, due to high deductions for production, marketing, and distribution. And I kept on telling you guys, like for example, Hollywood films, they would do a film, the cost say it's $100 million, then they will spend another $100 million in marketing, or in that realm. So I personally think they do that for these creative accounting purposes, because it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to spend that much money in marketing as in production. It really doesn't make much sense to me, because also it has inflated the production costs astronomically. They're not able to just make back the money as they want. And also, of course, because you're sharing the money with the theaters and whatnot, it just thins out the margins more and more. Now, for example, despite earning $1 billion, this is something. So Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was reported as unprofitable due to accounting practices. 100%, there's no way, there's no movie currently that made $1 billion that did not make profit. There's no movie yet. There's no movie that have had a production budget of $500 million. But the accounting, they would put, they would say, we didn't get anything. There's also delayed payments. recipients may wait longer to receive royalties as they depend on final profit calculation. That should be self-explanatory. And certain payouts. If the film fails to recoup its costs, as they have been doing the Hollywood ones recently, net royalty recipients may receive little or nothing. I suspect they'll give you little for PR purposes, but you know, the nothing part can also happen, especially if you're not a big actor or a big name. They will probably just let it go. Nobody just gives you free money for nothing. So what are the situations where net royalties may be considered? Low budget or independent films. Now, this is where we normally lie as people, our Siwa Kenya. Now, low budget or independent films. So if upfront revenue is limited, a net royalty deal might promise larger payouts if the film becomes a surprise hit. So you see, there is a caveat to it. It's not as straightforward. You might make a low budget film that overperforms in the market. So then if you had your royalties were net, then the payout is really good at the time. So equity in success. So recipients may accept net royalties to align their earnings with the film's overall success. Okay? High risk, high reward. This is the other aspect of this. So if stakeholders believe a film has strong chance of significant profitability, they might gamble on a net deal for a higher percentage. So you might have like, you have your little low budget film, but everyone you've shown it to, at least you've done your test screenings, you're like, hey, this thing is dope. You've taken to a distributor, they're now clamoring for it. Hey, man, how much? So this kind of situation does happen, and when it does happen, the payouts are usually good on those royalties, especially if you did the net royalties. Royalty percentages. How exactly do you negotiate for your royalties? Now, the contract must specify the percentage of the revenue base that will be paid as royalties. It must. In your contract, it might say, hey, you're going to get 0.5% of the gross every 4 months, or every 6 months, or every year. Now, that is the kind of language you should see in the contract that's referring to that. You must have this percentage, nothing else. Because some people tell you will give you a certain amount of money. They just say you'll get 500K if sales go above this or that. Those ones are very, very tricky. And it's that their creative accounting will come in there and throw the numbers off. Then you're told, no, actually we didn't make 10 million. It was 1.5, and here is your 30,000. There is that. So you have to be careful about that. So I'm going to put the formula that you can apply here. Like, just look at this. So to calculate royalties, you have the royalty payment, which is the revenue base multiplied by the royalty percentage. Okay? It is very simple like that. Revenue base times the royalty percentage, and you'll get what you're supposed to receive as your royalties. So you must also be able to have access to this information. I know that's why I'm keep on talking about this locally. We do not have access to this information from producers, and I've told you why I think that's the case. So, for example, you can see if somebody made 100 million shillings, royalty percentage is 1%. You can see the payment there is 1 million shillings. These are the factors that can affect the calculation of your royalties. Now, revenue streams. So royalties may differ based on the revenue source, e.g. box office versus streaming. They're not the same because box office is the hottest. It's the hot cake. The ticket sales, it's known for most movies. That's their biggest payout. So that's so streaming is a bit downhill, and except maybe if you're doing an exclusive, say with Netflix, they're saying it's going to be here and they've paid for everything. Plus, they've given you your licensing or commissioning fee, and you've agreed and everything. So there's that kind of situation. So it might rival box office, but box office is really the mother of it all, the mother lode of it all. So that will affect the calculations of your royalties. Performance bonuses. Performance bonuses. Now, I've talked about bonuses, sales. I call them sales bonuses because it's really sales bonuses. What tumefanya sales, you know. Now, additional royalties may be triggered if certain milestones are met, such as crossing a revenue threshold. I was telling you that earlier, that don't just tick that performance revenue comes as an addition to the royalties, because sometimes you have your 1% their royalties, but then the performance of, because you're that also negotiated bonuses, because sometimes a producer might just be and say, this thing has done so well, let me give people bonuses. So he just picks arbitrary numbers and does that. But you can negotiate how much you get after a certain threshold. So after you pass 2 million, this is what I get. If you get 5 million, if you get 10 million, this is, so you can negotiate that kind of staggered payment depending on the performance of the film in the market. Now, also deductions. That is mainly for net royalties. So this will include, of course, the production costs, the marketing and advertising, distribution fees, and studio overheads. You know, production cost, studio overheads. Right? In the studio, the people, the electricity, software, blah blah, all those things. All right. I hope mjachoka, but this is the the cost of information. You have to sit and listen. Now, timing and the frequency of royalty payments. Now, royalties are typically calculated and paid out on a regular schedule. So it is formed. So you'll say, as I said earlier, you can say I'm receiving my royalties after 2 months. No, it's not really 2 months. They say quarterly or half yearly or annually. So that regular, because the producers must have already known the sales cycle, know when the revenues come in, at least generally when they do. So when you'll have your contract reflecting, okay, I get paid every 6 months, every 4 months, every 1 year, every 2 years, whatever the case may be. So make sure that those things are inserted, the frequency of your payments and the timing, okay? Residuals for hearing and streaming are often paid at standardized rates managed by the guilds. Now that's now for the US. If we had, like here locally, you've seen the Prisks and the, is it called the Kenya Copyright Board? Is it Copyright Board? ISO is not, I really can't stand those organizations because they steal heavily. But if they were honest, they are the ones that would be collecting that for you and managing it for you, because they also take out their cost of that entire transactions. Now, let's look at the special considerations that you may have. There's something they call caps or floors. Some contracts set a minimum or maximum royalty amount. Yeah, so they'll tell you, we'll give you a minimum of this, but then it will not go above this, because they've already done the internal mathematics and said, hey, we need to keep this expense of royalties to this level. So we also have advances. Sometimes royalties include an advance payment that is deducted from future earnings. So if you already signed that contract, is meant to get it over a certain period, it might also be now that how do you say? They say, okay, give me a bit of deposit. We call it. Give me just a bit of what the royalties I would earn as we go. Normally, it means that the production house is quite sure about this product making back at least a lot of money over and above the expenses. So they'll probably give you some payment, some installment at the beginning, then they'll cut it as you go along. Now, profit participation, okay? Stakeholders might receive a share of the total profits instead of a percentage of revenue. Now, what tools and systems are required to be able to better collect royalties, calculate them, and also, to be able to disburse them? Automated accounting systems, of course, those have been known. So if you have your guild or organization, they must have these things set up, connected well, so that when the revenues come in, they know this has been reported. They already are including the data in their calculation. So by the time comes to disburse, they already know what it is. So you have these automated systems do it like that. So the studios use accounting software to track revenue and calculate royalties. That's actually, you've seen, like when you're trying to, like online, when like YouTube, whatnot, music, all this, you've seen there's this copyright manenos. That is what such systems can track. You know, you already have many organizations that track that. They say, oh, this was played here. There's this percentage. If it's a YouTube video that you use someone else's song, all those things, they fall in. So they this is their job, to go there, go to the box office, what was made here, what was that. So their job is to aggregate all these earnings. Now, guild rules, of course, those are the systems that we need to set up. We have briefcase guilds and associations, but they need to set up in such a way that you might have predetermined rates and rules for calculating royalties. I think that might be better to set as an industry standard. Might be, I said might be. Although my personal preference is that I don't like, I like to just handle my business with my company without external interference, because they do not understand or know what I do to get to the point that I am. Although at the same time now, I think there must be regulation, because people are not honest. So the guild's job is to make sure that that is done, that if people are paid their correct amounts, their correct percentages, like that, they have the rules that can be enforced by law. Because if you just have rules and it's just guild manenos, and most of the guilds here are not powerful, so even if they said, we're not dealing with you, it has no impact, because most people are independents anyway, and even if you are registered to any of these guilds and associations, they do not have the impact in your business that they want to. They're just briefcase organizations, as I said. So they do not have an actual impact on how we do business. But if they were, this is they are meant to do set rates, maybe after thorough negotiations and discussions with producers and the people who actually do the job. You don't just do them arbitrarily, because people like to do that. Chairman amesema lazima ikuwe 10%. You know, that kind of negotiation, if you like, would not work, because personally I'll say, I don't care. I'll remove all on my contracts and just tell the actors, my contract, I don't have royalties, because the Producers Guild Association wants me to pay you 20% royalties for this role, and I'm not going to do that. So sorry. If you can take this a one-off payment and we are done, you do your role as we do it now. So those are the kind of things that will pull a producer back or an exec and say, I'm also in business, and you don't get to tell me how much I have to pay out. You can negotiate and say, hey, can we make a minimum of, say, 0.1%? You know, can we do like, you know, those are the kind of negotiations we have with the actual people who do the business. So that's just, I'm speaking about this because, anyway, we don't have them functioning locally. So I'm just saying, in my opinion, that should be done, but with proper negotiations and asking the people who do actually the job, what is? All right? I don't know. I've talked a lot. If there are any questions that you might have about royalties, you can just put them in the comment section. Then maybe I might do a follow-up video, a shorter video, just to describe one particular thing. But generally, this is the information that you need to be able to go out there and negotiate for your royalties. Please understand, let me reiterate, that we do not have that business culture in our Kenya film industry. People do not pay royalties. People do not include royalties in contracts. Personally, I think it's intentional to leave the money, most of all the money, with the producers or execs or owners of the products. I think that if you want to maintain the best talent and have them motivated to do the best jobs, they must be able to earn regularly for a long time from something great they've done. The same way, if something they did was rubbish and they didn't make money, people shouldn't expect money. But this is one of the best ways that we can maintain the talent, so they concentrate more on their craft and in the industry instead of now doing side hustles. Unauza mtura on the side, na wewe ni actor. So that you have to supplement your income. Royalties are meant to do that, to supplement the income, because the jobs don't come regularly. Like for movies, you'll find a few actors have all the roles, then one or two you will sneak in here and there, but that is the situation. And because an actor might get 1 or 2 roles in a year, then the royalties would help to try and somehow, just lessen the financial strain a bit while they're looking for the next job or whatnot. It's one of, in my opinion, one of the best ways to try and maintain the best talent, so they don't go become hawkers or doctors or what. Keep them in the industry. Best actor. I'm telling you, some of the best actors, you can see them on TV now, are politicians. But because politics pays more, they went there. Otherwise, what do you think about the video? Please leave me your comments. Subscribe, share, like, kufanya hizo vitu zote mzuri kabisa. Sawa.